Hi, I'm Mark Lawson, president of Morningstar Music Publishers, and we are very pleased today to be joined by Howard Goodall. Many of you know Howard, and many of you might not have had an opportunity to meet Howard, so this is a good chance to get to know him. For those of you who don't know him, Howard has written a wonderful amount of choral music that is sung all over the world. He's also known for his award-winning movie scores and West End plays, and also for a very special series of music documentaries that have aired on the BBC. So he is multi-talented, and it is great to have Howard in our catalog. So Howard, thank you for taking time to visit with us.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Mark, and everybody else out there.
Tell us a little bit about your current situation in the UK and how you're working right now.
Well, like everybody in the United States, all the sort of ensemble performance, choirs, professional and amateur orchestras, all these kinds of things have had a very, very quiet year. I should say quiet is an understatement. They've been trying to meet, and I think one of the nice things, I'm going to look at some positives here about this year of lockdown, has been that composers like myself have been meeting with choirs, sometimes once a week, a different one, all these different choirs around the country who meet on Zoom in order not to forget about each other, to keep the habit going. And I've been able to say hello to them and be invited into their rooms, as it were, each week. So I think maybe I wouldn't have had those many contacts all through the year if I'd had to go there physically. Obviously, it would be far too much traveling and too much going for just half an hour. So that's been quite a nice thing. But of course, all these choirs want to be singing again.
Yes.
And for someone like myself, for whom choral music is terribly important, and something I love, and I love to write new pieces as well, all that commissioning of new works, rehearsing of existing ones has gone into mothballs. And it's very sad and very difficult. Apart from anything else, it's not just that we would all like to be singing again and performing again, which of course we would. It's that I think we're all composers are insecure, aren't we? And we worry that people will forget about us and our music if they don't keep in the habit of it. That when their choirs reconvene sometime next year or whenever it is, they'll just reach for something else and we'll all be forgotten about. So I have that little insecurity, but I have one thing that's a good thing, I guess, compared to, say, being an organist or a musical director or a conductor or a member of a choir, which is that I can do my job in a lockdown. I can write music, and I have been writing music. One doesn't know who's going to perform the music or when or all that. It's very uncertain, but I can compose, and I am in my studio composing, not so differently than that would be if there weren't a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
The pandemic, like it has for you in the United States, is back in its second wave now, and all sorts of new restrictions are coming back in. But so far, I can still come to my studio, which is 10 minutes down the River Thames from where I live, so I can cycle, don't have to use public transport. And I am composing here on my own. And my life as a composer is quite solitary. So from that point of view, those things haven't changed too much. And even when we were in full lockdown, I was able to set up a little keyboard in my wife's study in the corner and do some composing there as well. So yeah, I mean, I can't complain too much because I know so many actors, for example, and singers in the musical theatre who haven't been able to do anything. I mean, it's all very well singing a number from Hello Dolly at home, but that's not really, it doesn't really mean anything in respect of they want to be performing and they want to be working. And I had 2 musicals about to go into production at the beginning of all this that have been shelved now, and who knows how and when they'll be put back together again. The theatre is going to come back in drips and drabs, I think. It's not going to be quick.
It's not. Well, that kind of leads us to the next question, and that is because we're just publishing a piece called Loving Kindness that kind of grew out of the pandemic. So it had kind of started with unique circumstances. Talk about the text and about the whole initiation of this piece.
Yes, well, there we were right at the beginning of lockdown in March, and I was thinking, what am I going to write? And then I had a call from my friend Alan Jones. Now, I don't know how well anybody in the United States would know of him, but he's a well-known singer and TV presenter here in the UK, has quite a following, And he particularly, he sang a song called Walking in the Air when he was a little boy, and it was a huge hit. And he's been famous for that ever since, but he's now a grown man. And so anyway, every so often I write him a piece for his albums. He does an album about once a year, and each year for many years I've been writing Aled a piece. And he said, this year we're going to do an album called Blessings, and it's going to be about blessings from all around the world, different texts, etc. If you've got any ideas. And he said, if you can do something that isn't, British or isn't, kind of from the normal group of things, something from a bit further afield, that will be even better. So I had a little think, and I wrote the music for the musical of Bend It Like Beckham in the West End, which is half Indian music and half Western music. So I have a strong link in both my repertoire and also my heart for Eastern music, Indian music in particular, Punjabi folk music, etc. And so I said to him, well, how about an Eastern blessing? What if I find some texts that come from Asia? And he said, well, that sounds great. Go away and see if you can find something. So I found a Tibetan blessing, which I thought was very beautiful, very short, just a few lines. And then I also found some words, a blessing by Mahatma Gandhi. And I thought, well, to have a Tibetan Buddhist blessing and a Hindu Indian blessing in the same piece combined into two might be a wonderful way of covering that part of the world. So I said to him, here's my idea. So I'll sit down and think if I can do something. And as I was writing it, as it came into my head, when I looked at this text, just this music flooded into my head. And it is all about loving kindness and the simple fact of looking after people and hoping they'll be okay and all that. We were living that exact thing in front of our very eyes, with health workers and the whole community coming together to support them and to support those who were in trouble, and providing food for each other. And there was a huge outpouring of kindness. I think it's the best way to describe it. People being kind about each other. I think this may be something that's more usual in the run of affairs in America, where people are very generous to each other. And the whole past of your country has been people, needing to look after each other because they were in vast wildernesses. And a habit came of introducing yourself to people and being friendly and generous. And we're a bit more reserved in Britain. And I think actually seeing what happened in the pandemic, which was people literally going an extra mile to look after each other, was more of a novelty for us. At least expressing it openly was more of a novelty for us. I think people did it, but just did it very, very quietly. So I said to Aled, I said, look, I think this really reflects the time we're living in, this piece. Not often you write something, you think this isn't just of our time, it is of this week, of this day, of this moment. And so I said, what if we do, I know you're going to record it for your album later this year, and you're going to do it with an orchestra, etc., etc. But what if we were to record a little version with me playing the accompaniment and you singing it? And by the way, he lives about 400 meters from me in London, just by coincidence. And I said, what if I record a background and then I'll send it over to you and you can record it? And why don't we stick it out on YouTube as a sort of tribute to the spirit that we see around us for the health workers, etc., and the extraordinary sacrifices they were making. So that's why the thing came into life. He has, and then actually when we did it, there was a lot of interest from choirs and said, well, can we do a version, for choir? So I did a version for women, for upper voices. I did a version for male voice choir, and I did a version for SATB as well. And I also got in touch with our great friends at St. Luke's Methodist Church in Houston, Sid Davis and his colleagues, Jim and Grace Roman. And I said, look, I know you can't get a choir in there, but what if you were to get just Jim and Grace, who are married to each other? He'll play the organ and she'll sing it, and record a video on YouTube to do an American version of the same thing. And they did. So, and then I said to all the choirs, well, look, I'll do these versions. You see if you can stick up a virtual choir version of yourself doing it. And one by one, they did. So we had a male voice choir version, posted one up on YouTube, and then a girls choir did one, the upper voices version, and then an SATB choir did. So it was a lovely community thing that sort of blossomed of its own accord. And right now, at the other end of the year, Aled's album comes out next week, and he's released his sort of proper version with orchestra and all that kind of stuff. And so that's very nice. And he'll
well, I'll really look forward to hearing that. Well, the video is wonderful. I love watching the video.
Well, that's very kind of you, Mark. I mean, it has been a lovely thing to do. And if, you know, there is always a question, isn't there, when things like this happen, when the arts that we work and live and love so much, are so dear to us, insiders, as it were, that when they come under pressure and you sort of wonder, you know, what are we for? Because, you know, my daughter is an epidemiologist working flat out on COVID research. My other daughter was a key worker working in a school right the way through the lockdown, and is still. I thought, well, I'm the bloke writing music. I'm really not a key worker, not key in that sense anyway. So I was beginning to feel a bit useless. And then I thought, well, actually, no, if we can do something that brings people together, if we can help them feel good about what they're doing together, if we can bring communities together, that's at our very best what we as writers and performers of choral music do. And I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to do, and that these virtual choirs, though it's not the same as, you know, being in a room and singing and filling the room with this sound of you together and having an audience and all that's not the same, I realize. But the virtual choirs, at least people were saying, we're still here, we're still singing,
right,
we're still
right.
meeting as a community of singers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, before we close, do you mind giving us a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the things that you're working on currently?
Well, I did a second thing connected to the pandemic, which is a growing project, which is a piece called Never to Forget, which was commissioned by the London Symphony Chorus, who wanted to do something. And I had this idea of writing a piece where the whole text would simply be the names of the health workers and care workers who had died during the pandemic. So we did a version where we sort of froze the list in April. It was already then 122 names, which took 8 minutes to sing. So the London Symphony Chorus and the orchestra put together a version that we put online. And I said that we would do a version when this was all over, perhaps next year sometime, a live version, which would have all the names, which of course now tragically is going to be like a half-hour long piece.
Yeah.
And we were approached by a dance company who wanted to do a dance version of it, etc. So that's going to be a big job for me that I've been doing and I've been working on and trying to develop that over the next few months. It's unusual to be working on something where your text, some of it hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope that there'll be no more names, but unfortunately there are, and there will continue to be, as a living sung memorial to those people who made that sacrifice. So I've been doing that, and I've been writing other things as well. You know, as I say, I've got 2 musicals which are sort of would have been in production by now and have to be held off. And I think one of the things I'm doing, which I don't think is unusual for composers right now, is thinking of ways of doing it on a less grand scale. You know, paring it down, rather like Stravinsky in the First World War, having written these enormous ballets for enormous orchestras in Paris. Then the First World War started, and he went off to, excuse me, my phone's going. He went off to Switzerland during the war, and in that period, he then wrote the Histoire du Soldat, I think for about 8 instruments, because you know you just have to repair your thoughts. How can we do on a smaller scale? It's not a bad discipline anyway, but it's quite a nice thing to do. I wish it hadn't been forced upon me, but that is what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking time to share with us, and we really wish you the very best as you all are struggling with this, just like we are. So, thanks for taking time. And we will really look forward to introducing loving kindness to everyone in the United States.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a lovely thought for the future.
Well, you take care.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye, everybody.
Goodbye.